Welcome to our studio, Ralph. For everyone who doesn't know you yet, let me quickly set the stage. You have been an authority in the open source world for over 3 decades. You are one of the founders of the Apache Software Foundation and the author or co-founder of projects like OpenSSL, OpenPKG, and you are the prolific author of more than 300 open source projects over the years. Honestly, looking at the track record, one could almost suspect you had access to agentic coding long before the rest of us did. But on a more serious note, today we are here for your latest one, ASE, Agentic Software Engineering. So let me start simple. What is ASE and what made you sit down, build it?
First, thanks for the invitation. ASE is my opinionated companion toolkit fusing the concept of agentic AI coding on one side and traditional software engineering in software development tools like Anthropic Claude Code, and to some extent, with a little bit of reduced support, also in alternative tools like GitHub, Copilot CLI, or OpenAI Codex. ASE actually technically ships with agent hooks, agent skills, an underlying model context, protocol service, and a command line interface, a CLI, incorporating reasonable methodology and automation aspects. This is the main part. Why? Well, to support the recurring tasks of a software developer and a software architect, in the daily practice. ASE actually is my attempt to further shape Claude Code into a tool which is even more cool for software developers and software architects by making it more specific for their particular daily tasks.
Now, when people hear agentic coding, they picture one thing, the AI writing code. But from what I gather, with ASE, that is almost the last step. So take us into your actual workflow. How do you work with ASE on a real task?
Yeah, software engineering is more than just the bare coding. In software development, especially the role of a software architect has to do a lot more. Just take the particular job of a software architect to create a so-called walking skeleton, where the primary task is to define a coherent technology stack, which most of the time means a selection and integration of about 100 or 115 individual components. And just for this job already, the software architect has to perform various tasks. It starts from searching and discovering potential components. It is evaluating alternative components and making decisions, then stress testing and strengthening the decisions. So a lot of things happen before you actually code.
And rather than just describing it, you actually brought us something. So let's roll the screencast and you walk us through.
Yeah, in the screencast, we see actually ASE running inside Claude Code, and the prompt is on the top bottom left here. And let's play this screencast so we can actually see this video. We first discover command line option parser as an example, doesn't matter. Yeah? So I play an architect, I want command line option parsing libraries, and we see that actually ASE is starting, figuring out things. We see on the bottom left the particular steps it performs. This is always the case in ASE, that it describes the individual steps. You see here that first the technology stack has to be discovered. Then components are discovered via npm.js.com, GitHub, etc. And once this is done, I get a report on potentially available components which fit my particular task here, command line parsing. So just give this a little bit of seconds. We see here now the report comes in. I get an overview, component, hints, what is available, what is the pro and cons, USPs and others, and I see immediately a ranking. So here I can figure out perhaps that commander and Y-arcs would be interesting components. Next step is to do an evaluation. Well, from the methodology side, it means to do a weighted multi-criteria decision matrix, usually done in Excel, here done directly inside Claude Code. So you see, I told Claude Code to do this evaluation. It goes over multiple steps once again, here to determine alternatives, next to derive criteria, and finally do the evaluation of the alternatives against the criteria. And in my prompt, you've seen that I put Y-arcs commander in and give a focus on particular things I'm interested in. So we will see that in this weighted decision matrix, there will be a focus when it comes to the weights on the things I want to get focus on. Here we see in the alternatives, once again, with USPs to get an impression. Then all the calculations, which are usually done in Excel, here are done by the LLM. And finally, I get a so-called weighted multi-criteria decision matrix. And we see here, well, something like y-args wins because of this particular chosen popularity, TypeScript support, and other things. Next is perhaps I have a statement. I say, okay, y-args would be better than Commander.js for the ASE CLI. Well, just an example, a decision I have to make perhaps as an architect. And I start the Diaboli task, which tries to find antithesis. So I get a thesis, what I said, the LLM chooses antithesis and makes out of this, through dialectical reasoning, synthesis. And well, finally, I can even do another method, for instance, the 5why method we know from children, which just relentlessly ask why. This is also here done through ASE, and I get a solution here on the bottom. And the final thing is I can even inside ASE, in case I have at least the necessary access to the other LLMs configured, I can query other LLMs for a particular question and get a quorum answer, so a consensus answer on this particular question. You see here in the middle, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Google Gemini, etc. are called. So here now the Anthropic Claude is actually just one of the game, or either I ask through OpenAI or OpenRouter.ai other LLMs. And what happens is that not each LLM is just queried, but a consensus is figured out. We see it here, consensus answer comes in, including information where a difference exists, perhaps, between the particular AIs, and we can actually stop it. It now just starts from the beginning here. So we see ASE is a lot more, because before it comes to coding, we see a lot of things which happen actually.
So let me get this straight. So everything we watched, the searching, the ranking, the challenging, that all happened before we've ever written one line of code.
Yes, exactly. Because that's the job of a good developer and architect, not just to directly jump in and do vibe coding or something like this. Even Claude Code would support this, but to do this thinking before. Yeah. So this is actually a lot about automating lots of methodology aspects, because I want them conveniently available directly within the Agentic AI coding tool like Claude Code. And please notice also, I could discover components through regular web browsing, and I could perform evaluations in Excel. ASE boosts you here because it searches and ranks automatically, and it automates the entire decision matrix process. I can even change the criteria easily and on the fly, do a re-evaluation. So things I cannot easily do in Excel. So this was the idea, to put this all directly into Claude Code. So ASE, well, really boosts already the methodology tasks you have to do far ahead for the later coding.
So you just mentioned coding. So even though there are a lot of steps you need to go through, once the methodology is done, you will arrive at this stage and start building. Does ASE also support during the coding task?
Yes, indeed. This is the primary domain of Claude Code and those underlying tools. So beside the typical ad hoc prompting mode, for instance, where you just ad hoc enter your prompt into Claude Code, and the built-in planning mode, this is this /plan stuff, or if you do a Shift-Tab in Claude Code, where you more or less prompt against a plan before it is executed, ASE adds 3 additional modes of operation. First one is ASE provides a so-called task mode. This is the more advanced mode, where the user initially crafts and then continuously refines the task plan. So similar to the plan mode, but well, on steroids perhaps. The task plan has here a fixed format, is persisted, and hence is already available across different agent sessions, something not really possible with Claude Code in a native way, at least not such easily. And this task mode especially has advanced features like the possibility to let you and your plan be grilled. So ASE tries to figure out whether you and the LLM have a shared understanding on this particular plan or this user story you're writing there, and whether underspecified aspects actually exist, which, well, later can cause trouble, as the LLM would ad hoc decide how to realize these aspects. So the task mode is the plan mode on steroids, yeah, and perfectly supports an agile development style where you treat the current plan something like a user story. On the other hand, ASE provides also a funnel mode in front of this task mode. this is even more advanced, where the user first sketches the plan, then the agent figures out possible approaches, and the user then selects the preferred approach, and only then we actually create a plan for this particular approach. And finally, we switch over to the regular task mode. So it's really in front of the task mode, another mode which, that's the name because I named it funnel, which funnels you to the particular solution. Yeah. So in this mode, the trick is this funnel of approaches, which often help to avoid that you and the agent to directly approach a particular solution without, enough thinking beforehand. So once again, before you come to coding, my idea always is to do enough thinking. So I want with ASE that people, software engineers, do really their professional thinking, even if they are using agentic coding tools, but they should not start immediately with coding. Yeah? And finally, ASE provides even something like a sync mode. This is the separated reconciliation mode where the user aligns the code and the documentation to the specification and the architecture description. So it's some sort of forward engineering, or even aligns the specification and the architecture description to the code. So this is something of a reverse engineering.
So both ways are possible.
Yeah, both ways are possible here. So this is the opposite of an agile approach, and more something like, spec-driven development or something like this, if you want. So instead of short user stories, you iteratively enhance a central requirement specification and an architecture description, and then you just iteratively align the code or reconcile the code. So this is more or less for the larger projects here.
So I see ASE does not really enforce a particular operation mode, but one might say that with having these options, the trade-off is that you actually need to make a decision on one approach.
Yes, that's right. ASE does not enforce you here. Yeah, that's correct. ASE intentionally does not enforce a particular mode. And actually, ASE is primarily for an experienced software developer or software architect who knows what to do, including, yes, the decision when to choose which operation and skill. Yeah. So yeah, it comes with a price a little bit, but it isn't such hard. Let me give you a few examples. First, the simple, this ad hoc prompting mode of Claude Code is just fine for simple tasks where the objective is crystal clear and, you have a reasonable clue how the solution should look like. But because you want to be more productive and not waste time, you let the agent help you. An example would be prompts like, please realign the documentation to the change code state, or extend the regression tests to cover the new function, or move this function from here to another class or something like this. So those tasks are perfect to be just delegated ad hoc to the agent. You don't need ASE for these things. Claude Code can, is perfect here out of the box. Then there's the built-in planning mode. This in Claude Code is what you get with /plan, or if you switch with Shift-Tab. This mode is great in general, as you can prompt against the plan. But in practice, I find it still too weak. It persists the plan, but the plan cannot be easily loaded by name, especially not across sessions and things. It is where ASE's task mode actually can bring you benefits, because it's plan mode on steroids. So here the ASE task mode persists the plan under a configurable directory, potentially inside your project. This way you can even share the plans with your colleagues. Multiple plans can be here saved and loaded back by name, so you can prepare multiple plans, because a plan is something like a user story. You can plan your user stories if you want. Yeah? And especially you can get grilled for the plan where you want, you want to get rid of the open areas and really get a shared understanding here on this stuff. So here you treat the plan as some sort of a dedicated, persistent user story in this particular mode. And when it comes to the funnel mode, this is just an extension of the task mode. I choose this in practice when the right approach is not clear to me. And I want that the agent and I first determine the right approach. Because the funnel mode is also specific to a kind of operation. It internalizes so-called tenets through the ASE constitution and the skills to be more specific for the particular task. So it can be internalize tenets for crafting, refactoring, or problem resolution operations. Yeah? Because in these different operations, usually the tenets which should guide you or the guidelines should be different. Just an impression. If you do refactoring, I don't want that the behavior changes. I just want to move things around. So you need this. While when you do actually crafting new stuff, yes, you want to change.
Yes.
So it's obvious that different operations need different tenets which should guide the operation. And well, finally, the sync mode is more a maximum complex task which iteratively have to be solved. Here you write a full specification, step by step, so classical software engineering. And at each step, or even just at the end, you reconcile your code by aligning your code to the specification. So this is more or less a specification or spec-driven development. So you see, more or less, based on the expected complexity of the task, I choose the operation mode, which seems to fit best for the situation. And during a workday, I switch multiple times. And this is the reason why ASE does not enforce a particular mode. Yeah? So ASE intentionally let me decide my own, so I'm in the driver's seat, what actually should happen. I'm still the chief of the task, not the agent. Yeah? So this is exactly the difference when it compared to vibe coding or something like this. So the agent is brilliant in resolving the task, yes, but I want, as an engineer, decide when we actually choose which approach, because it depends on, well, my feeling, my expectation of the complexity of the task, and something like this.
So if I got it right, so what all modes have together is that you put the human in the driver's seat in every single mode. In a time where everyone is talking about letting agents run on their own, that almost sounds like a contradiction. Why insist on it?
Well, very simple. I want that software engineers do not lose control. And I want even that large projects are possible in agentic software engineering. Because, well, most of the vibe coding success stories are for small things. But we in our industry have large systems which have hundreds of thousands of lines of code. So this is different beast. And there you cannot just vibe code or something like this. Yeah? So we have to be careful here, because vibe coding works for, yeah, well, 1,000 lines of code or something like this, but an information business system is really of a different kind. So all modes, including vibe coding, have their sweet spot and are useful for achieving certain types of solutions. So I have nothing against vibe coding. It's fine. Vibe coding is great for creating a small utility, a prototype, a proof of concept, a documentation website, etc. But you need a different approach when you are acting on large projects or in regulated markets, or if you want to be even in charge in the long term, yeah? Because there you have to understand what the results are actually, and you have to, well, you have to own it. Yeah? So ASE is my attempt to keep software engineers still flexible and, yeah, still seat in the driver's seat.
Okay, so then let's talk about your agentic AI level model. You keep coming back to control and judgment, and you have actually formalized that into a model. Can you lay the whole scale out for us from level 0 to hero, or is it not even desirable to reach the last level?
Yeah, you can already imagine it is not desirable always to go. Well, here you see the model I'm using in the industry as a CTO. It's a model. Let me explain it to our viewers, this central model. First is, it's a model that you can better understand the levels where you are acting together with the agentic AI coding tool like Cloud Code. Well, at least from my personal perspective, well, the model classifies the gradual sharing of work with the AI agent. So let's start. At level 0, you see it on the left. This is manual. You do everything manually and without support from the AI agent at all. So here, think, do it yourself, where you obviously know the results and inherently train your own skills. This is the old way until, well, 2025, I would say. At level 1, so assisted, you are supported by the AI agent for individual steps only. So here, think about an assistant, where you still know all results in detail, but inherently, your practical execution skills can be partly start to wane in the long term because the assistant does the steps for you. At level 2, supervised, you're working on an entire task with the AI agent as an equal pair. So, well, here, think perhaps co-working, where your colleague shares the task workload with you. You mutually review each other's result. Hence, you still know all results in detail, but inherently, your practical execution skills can be lost in the long term if you're not careful. At level 3, delegated, You even delegating entire workflows to the AI agent. Here, think offshoring, where your colleague shoulders the entire workload for you. You just review the results, but your own practical execution skills and your ability to quality assure the results will be forever lost if you're not regularly, at least virtually, replaying the delegated work. So here you have to be careful. You are very, very productive. The AI agent does a lot for you, but you can lose control easily. And finally, at level 4, on the right side, this is, well, the autonomous way. You're assigning entire process life cycles to the AI agent. So here, think third party, where your vendor does everything for you, fully autonomously. You just take the results as is, and your own practical execution skills doesn't matter, as it is already out of scope. So with ASE, most of the things are possible. Notice that every of those levels, your view on the results for Agentic AI coding, that's your code, starts as a white box on the left and becomes more and more a black box. Also notice that the scope goes from steps to tasks, over workflows, up to life cycles. And finally, notice that when it comes to certain distinguished dimensions we see here on the bottom, it comes to you have to distinguish those dimensions, and these distinguish the particular levels. They tell you have to accept, or what do you have to accept or to do when you are moved towards level 4 in your task. You delegate more and more. So this easily becomes more efficient, yes, but the quality risk at least increases. Also, to keep your knowledge and skill, despite the fact that you're using a tool, an AI which supports you, you have to perform reviews and even do virtual replaying of the solution in your head. And towards level 4, you demand more and more evidence and proofs provided by the agent to keep everything traceable for you, usually through validations and tests. And finally, if you do everything yourself, you don't have to brief anybody. That's clear and obvious. But if you move more and more towards level 4, you need you have a larger need to get briefed, or you brief the agent and the agent has to brief you again what it has done. So in an extreme case, by a detailed, precise, perhaps specification. So you see, if you don't be careful on your movements towards level 4, you can easily lose control. So which level to choose depends on the daily tasks you have to perform. Some are fine at level 0. Some are also fine at level 4, as mentioned before, for prototyping, updating things, whatever. But for me, the sweet spot is really at the levels 1, 2, and 3. And here, you do not lose control too fast, and the agent still boosts your productivity. And that's the reason why, for those levels, this is a sweet spot for ASE, which I try to focus on.
Okay, so with every level you climb, you gain the obvious things like convenience, speed, and output. But the price is deferred and much harder to see. You slowly give away your own understanding of the work, and with it, your ability to judge whether the result is any good. And the cruel part is the timing. The moment you most need a judgment is when the agent gets something slightly wrong. But by then, if you have been delegating for long enough, you may have already lost the very skill you would need to catch it.
Exactly.
So you bought convenience, and the currency you paid in was the ability to verify. Then the control you gave up is precisely the control you would need to check the result. So here my real question is, the pull is always toward just let it do for me, because that is the most comfortable choice in the moment.
It's convenient.
And you yourself wrote that my own skill, once gone, can forever be lost. Now, how do you actually keep that skill alive when the temptation to hand everything over is this strong? What does staying sharp look like in practice?
Well, that's really the hardest part of Agentic AI coding from my perspective, because you really can lose control in the long term. It is, as you said, very convenient, but it can hurt. I've personally no final answer here. Currently focusing on the sweet spot level in the middle of the model we showed can help. Mm-hmm. That's my experience. You get boosted in your productivity, not a maximum. Yes, it could be more, but you still lose no control. So you get boosted in your productivity, and while there's not a negligible risk of losing control, you're still in charge and feel, well, good enough by all this stuff. So it's a balance, yeah. But in the long term, our entire software engineering community still has a long journey, I think, to better understand what we have to do to ensure we are not losing control and still get boosted enough in our productivity. It will become interesting to see what solution we find to balance these two hard aspects.
Okay, so let me bring us back to the screencast, the decision metrics. The model proposed criteria and the scores, but who actually did the math? Because I suspect it was not the LLM, and that points to an engineering decision inside ASE that I find quite telling. You do not let the language model do everything. Some things you deliberately hand to plain deterministic code. So what does the model not get to touch and why?
Well, to be honest, in early versions of ASE, even the sum product and those math behind the weighted multi-criteria decision matrix was calculated by the LLM.
Okay.
It's really possible. Yeah? Frontier LLMs actually can do it. But my computer scientist heart bleeded, obviously, because it makes no real sense to perform fully deterministic algorithms like this mathematical calculation with a probabilistic and language-trained engine like an LLM, of course. A similar thing I recognized, by the way, when I started to implement the Unix-style CLI option parsing at the LLM levels, because I wanted Unix-style options to control parameters of the particular skills. So yeah, this also worked. I implemented it actually on the LLM level, but it makes no sense. So I finally decided a different architecture for ASE. Instead of being just a plugin for Claude Code based on LLM-executed skill files, which is most of the plugins coming this way, ASE is a plugin shipping with both skills and a CLI for hooks plus an underlying MCP service. This is all done implicitly in the background, and the user doesn't actually have to care about this. It's done automatically. So when the ASE plugin is enabled inside Claude Code and Claude Code starts, ASE kicks in through the hooks and the MCP service automatically. Why all this? Well, very simple. With this CLI and MCP in the background, all the ASE skills can delegate functionalities where full determinism is key to the CLI and the MCP service, like this math calculation before. So ASE does this for option parsing, calculations, task management, config management, key value caching, etc. So for lots of things which, well, their probabilistic world doesn't make sense, and the deterministic world is key, I choose to actually delegate the stuff from the LLM level over MCP to the underlying regular deterministic code.
So I think that's quite interesting and definitely something that separates ASE from other tools that are out there. But I want to close on something more personal. At the very start, I joked that we might suspect you had agentic coding all along. But now it is here. And for someone who has written code for over 4 decades, there must be a strange moment the first time you watch the agent simply do the work for you. And not in some clumsy, half-baked way, but generally well. I cannot imagine that you simply welcomed that overnight. My sense is that an arrival like this is something you first have to make your peace with. And what I'm really curious about is whether ASE is actually that, your way of making peace. Not just another tool you build, but the thing that lets you find your peace again in a craft that, at least at first glance, no longer seems to need the hands of an experienced software developer.
Well, you nailed it, Jude. Yeah, you nailed it. Indeed. When in Q1 of 2025, the era of agentic AI coding really started with Claude Code and the language model versions at this time. And I personally was really shocked, definitely. Because agentic AI coding tools can do unbelievable things we all had not imagined before. Until this time, the king discipline of even diehard coders was something like, for instance, large-scale refactoring. I failed multiple times in my career with those things. And well, the agentic AI coding tools today master this king discipline discipline of a coder better than every coder and architect I know of. The AI here is faster, less error prone, and does not get lazy, even if many thousands of lines of code have to be lifted and shifted around. So this was unbelievable 15 months ago, even for me. And then, yes, I was shocked, definitely. So I was not happy to see that the things I defined myself over 4 decades is now possible done by an AI here. But then I realized more and more that the old area was gone. It will not come back. The AI is here and it will stay. So yes, it will still evolve, of course, but it will not go away. And it should also not go away, as it is a really cool tool. And even I personally enjoy it very much to work with the AI. But yeah, you got it. I also had to make my peace with the new era. And so I really intensively worked over the last 15 months with tools like Block Code. Initially, just the bare metal way, then with a few dedicated skills of others, then the first skills made by me. And I realized more and more that when I cannot reverse to the good old days of the diehard coders, I have to make peace, yes, with the situation. So I decided to accept the new possibilities. But in order to really enjoy it myself, well, the possibilities have to look, what I need to look and feel the way I personally like it. So this starts with Unix command line options inside Cloud Code, and it goes to other things. So I started with all these things. For instance, Cloud Code really had to stop being such colorful. I'm not a colorful person. So the first one was and the filter, which is on top of Cloud Code. This is completely optional and not part of ASE, but it comes in a companion product, open source project. It's named CloudX, where I do an extension of Cloud Code. So I reduced the color and all this stuff. I improved the terminal handling. Yeah.
For everyone who doesn't know, Ralph, everything is either blue or brown.
Or black.
Or black, yes, okay, or black.
Yes, exactly. That's the reason why the entire website of ASE is tinted with blue dark colors. Yeah. So I did a lot of things. I changed the color stuff, the terminal handling. I want more methodology aspects. I educate people since decades have to be directly baked into the AI, as we have seen before. The AI has to be respond in a more structured and strict way. That's the reason why the ASE skills try to, well, even enforce the LLM to answer in particular ways. All this stuff I put into ASE, well, because at the end I want that the LLM, feels like I like it. It's very opinionated, yes, definitely, but hopefully other people also enjoy it. Yeah, by all this stuff you get things like all this stuff like judgment planning. All those tools should be better supported in daily life by the AI. So I started writing skills, hooks, wrapper scripts, etc. And out of these initial steps, at the end, open source projects like ASE on one side, but also CloudX, where my wrapper and the stuff came out at the end. So yes, CloudX and ASE are an open source veterans opinionated attempt to make really peace with the agentic AI coding world and to deliver the groundwork, hopefully, for more fusion of agentic AI coding and software engineering. And well, it would be my pleasure if other people place other things into ASE.
I think this is the perfect note to end on. A tool built not to replace the craftsman, but to keep him in the loop, in the driver's seat, and at peace with AI. Ralph, thank you for taking the time and for letting us look at not just what you built, but also why. And for everyone watching, do not just take our word for it. Go to ASE.tools, head over to the GitHub page, install it, and actually run it on your next task. It is open source, it costs you nothing but a few minutes, and the best way to understand what we just talked about is to put your own hands on it. So go and try it. And Ralph, given your track record of more than 300 projects, something tells me this will not be the last time we have you in the studio. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for the invitation, Max, and thank you for listening.